Hey, what's going on, guys? This is AndrewChicken, and welcome back to another video. We have yet another Deadlock update. The pace at which they are releasing these updates is just absurd. And this update is another one chock full with a bunch of balance changes both to items and to characters, as well as some general balance changes to discuss. Real quick before we get started, a link to the patch notes will be in the description down below if you want to follow along. And if you've been enjoying my update coverage as well as all the other fun videos I'm making on the channel, then why not consider subscribing? It's free, helps you stay up to date on all my latest videos, and it really helps out a ton. But with that being said, let's get started by talking about some of the general changes here. So up first, we have a change to breakable soul scaling. These are the souls that you get from these boxes here, and they've basically shifted it so they start out less effective, but they will ramp up to be more effective as the match goes on. So previously they would start at a base value of 28.5, but that has been nerfed down to 23 souls, as you can see right here. However, their scaling as the match goes on has been increased. So previously the rate was 2.375 souls added on to the value of the breakable souls per minute, and that has been increased to 2.6 souls. So over time, as the match goes longer and longer, eventually you will break even on these souls compared to last patch, and then actually start getting more souls out of these in the ultra late game. So box farming has been absolutely phenomenal, absolutely busted way to get souls, and this should make it a little bit less effective in the early game, although it'll still be very rewarding. They also did a few fixes and changes near the base here regarding troopers. So the trooper resistance near base has been reduced from 40% to 35%. Should be a little easier to kill troopers when they're in the base, especially when they're rejuve boosted. My god, that is a terrifying combination. And they also fixed neutrals near the base, gaining the near base trooper resist. Apparently, that was a bug for neutral troopers that were really close to the base, kind of like over here in this general direction, I think, is what they're talking about. They've also done a few changes to the map, starting with this. Whoa, there's a new little wall here to provide some extra cover on the side lanes here. It's a wall partition structure outside of outer lane base entrances, according to the patch notes. Looks pretty nice, and I do like having a little bit more cover here because this new base design is awesome. But one thing is that it's really tough to actually siege this because you're going up to the high ground and there wasn't a lot of cover here. So adding a little bit of that is just so nice. They also added this news kiosk right here in between the blue lane walker and the outer base guardians here, so this is going to provide even more cover in this area. It's actually kind of tight over here between the news kiosk, the walls over here, this little air ventilation system, so yeah, just even more cover outside the base. And the last major change they did to the actual map itself is that they improved the lighting in the mid-boss areas, so let's go take a look at that. Just pop on down here and see if we can notice any differences. This looks mostly the same, maybe a little bit brighter. How about down here? Yeah, I don't know. It feels like it's a pretty subtle change overall, but definitely the cover changes over by the base are pretty huge. One last general change before we start getting into the patch notes, or the balance changes, is that there was a bug where if you would throw the soul urn in certain places and then pick it up, you would basically be able to carry the urn, but the urn would be invisible on your back, so it'd be harder to tell that you were the person with the urn, and that has apparently been fixed, so that's the last major general change. So now let's get into the balance changes. We're going to start with the items up first, and we're just going to go in order of the patch notes here. So, first of all, we have a change to Restorative Shot, which is definitely a nerf for shotgun characters. So, Restorative Shot will now only proc when the center pellet hits in the case of shotguns. So, if we just half health ourselves a bunch here, and then fire, okay, so if I just hit him point blank like this, we do get Restorative Shot. However, if I miss, let me go ahead and turn on no cooldown here. I didn't get Restorative Shot there, or there, but I hit him center mass like that, I do get the Restorative Shot. And then hit off to the side like this again, you see how it is not giving me that Restorative Shot. So, big nerf to the consistency of it for shotgun users. You're now going to have to be more precise, just like the rest of us when it comes to using Restorative Shots. Headshot Booster is the same way. It now requires the center pellet to hit the head in order to proc, and this is also true for its upgrade Headhunters. So, if you miss, let's just say I hit the head like that, I don't get the proc. But if I hit him like that, now we get the headshot booster to apply. So, yeah, just change to reward accuracy on shotguns and mean that you can't just spray and pray and still get huge value out of these items. They've done a lot of changes here to Fleetfoot. So first of all, they increased the cooldown from 10 seconds to 16 seconds, but they increased the duration from 4 seconds to 6 seconds. So already an interesting change. You technically have less uptime if you're just not buying any sort of cooldown or duration items, but obviously duration items will scale this better and cooldown items will have a bigger impact on Fleetfoot. And now they've also changed the stats it gives you. So instead of giving 125 bonus health, it now provides 10% bullet resist. So we have another bullet resist item here, very interesting. And they also make it so that you have 40% slow resistance during the active effect. So you get more of a window of opportunity to use your movement speed thanks to the duration increase, and now you also have that slow resist on top of it, making this a pretty powerful movement speed item. We'll see how much this item gets used after this pretty much just soft rework here. Very interesting change. Next up, we have Melee Charge, and this is getting a fix. So it always gave 25% more damage against objectives, which kind of is an interesting bug. I didn't exactly know about that, but now I guess that's technically a nerf to Melee Charge, although I wonder how many people actually even knew that existed. Headhunter has also been changed, so the bonus headshot damage will now scale with boons rather than spirit power. And the same is true for the bonus headshot damage. So that is something interesting. I think this is the first item in the game to scale specifically based on boons, and you can see that there is a new item indicator here. So yeah, it has Abrams' face with a little up arrow, and the face will change based on whatever hero you're playing. That's so fascinating. So per boon, you get +5 headshot bonus damage, it looks like, if I just level myself up once. Yeah, so we get 5 headshot bonus damage, and we get plus 0.1% heal per headshot. So if I max myself out, we can now see the max value of Headhunter, so we go up to 175 headshot bonus damage and 6% heal per headshot. So this is now an item that in the early game won't be as strong, but in the late game, it's back up to actually having really good stats, and you no longer have to scale spirit power in order to level up your gun item, which I think is definitely an elegant solution for what they're trying to fix with this item, because for a while it was insanely broken in the early game and also scaled really well into late game. Now it's going to be a little bit more tame in the early game, but scale better into late game, and it'll be interesting to see if they expand this boon philosophy to other characters. And we also, by the way, have a new UI for the boons here. Let me double check that you can actually see it. Yeah, you can. Yeah, so that's pretty neat. I definitely like this change. After that, we have Cultist Sacrifice, and this has received a volley of changes. So the out-of-combat regen has been reduced in half, from +4 down to +2. Weapon damage versus NPCs and bullet resist versus NPCs has gone down from 35% down to 30%, which is still 5% more than monster rounds. The fire rate has been reduced from 25% down to 10%. The fire rate now scales with boons, however. So you can see that now that I'm at max level, instead of having just 10% fire rate, I now have 35% fire rate, which is more than the 25% that we had before. And they also did the same thing with the health bonus. So that has been reduced from 250 down to 100, but now if we max out our boons, we will get 320 bonus health from this. So this item will be stronger in the late game now, but weaker in the early game. Very interesting change. Blood Tribute got a very small buff, 5% extra fire rate. It went from 35% to 40%. Definitely a little bit more of a savory item now. Express Shot had a bug, where shotguns with Express Shot would instantly apply buildups. I actually noticed this with Shiv, and what's it called? Toxic Bullets. I was playing a Toxic Bullets Shiv build, and I was basically building this up in one Express Shot, which was pretty crazy. So yeah, that I guess was a bug, and it has been fixed. Crippling Headshot, let's take a look at that. No longer has a 3-second cooldown. However, the debuff has been reduced. The duration has been reduced from 10 seconds down to 8 seconds. So a lot more uptime on this, and you can theoretically apply this to multiple heroes in quick succession now, because obviously if it went on a 3-second cooldown, if you hit Abrams with a crippling headshot, you then couldn't apply it to Shiv, and so, yeah, that was a little bit annoying, so now this will be much more consistent there. Definitely a big buff to crippling headshot. Armor-piercing rounds. Bullet velocity increased from 30% to 35% to match the component. Yeah, this felt really weird to me. High velocity rounds gave 35% bullet velocity, and then it went down to 30 when you upgraded. It's still missing the 5% fire rate, but considering the bonus that armor-piercing rounds provides, I think that's probably fair and balanced. Crushing Fists also had the same bug as Melee Charge, where it was providing extra damage against objectives, so that has been fixed. Moving on to the Vitality items. Uh-oh! The meta just got real different. Healing Nova is now a tier 3 item. They just made this so much more expensive. Uh-oh. So no more Healing Nova stacking in the early game. Didn't we see this on Deadlock Fight Night where everyone was stacking Healing Nova? Oh my goodness. Yeah, that was a bit silly. So, yeah, now it has a much larger base heal because it's a tier 3 item. It went from 260 up to 325, and the heal now scales with boons rather than spirit power, 7 per boon. It now grants 8 spirit power, and the cooldown has been reduced from 70 seconds down to 60 seconds. That is a big change. That is a really, really big change. So, definitely the early game healing meta has just been drastically shaken. Because previously you could buy healing right, you could take advantage of that healing in the early lane, and then just for an extra 800 souls, the price of a tier 1 item, you could upgrade that into Healing Nova and give you and your partner some ridiculous sustain. It was too strong, and this has certainly shaken that up. Although now it'll be interesting to see. Okay, would you rather upgrade Healing Right into the tier 3 Healing Nova, or the tier 3 Rescue Beam? Especially when you consider Rescue Beam, I would say probably has way better late game scaling because it's a percent-based heal rather than a flat heal. So if you're trying to Rescue Beam characters with super high health pools like Abrams or Krill, I feel like this is just better. It has a lower cooldown too, so I don't know. Healing Nova definitely got a huge nerf there. We'll just see how the meta plays out with that, but I feel like we're going to see the pick rate just plummet. After that, Counterspell, the duration has been increased from 0.8 seconds to 1 second, so you just have a longer spell parry duration. Now, if I just parry here, it's hard to tell whether that increases the duration of the actual parry. I don't think it does. I think it's just, you press your parry button, and then you get 1 second of anti-spell, and if a spell happens to hit you, then it goes on cooldown. Spellbreaker was affecting Lady Geist's ultimate, which on paper makes sense. Lady Geist can do a big burst of damage, and this would see that it did more than 150 damage, and it would reduce the damage by 75%. However, the devs felt this wasn't fair to Lady Geist, so they have fixed it. According to the patch notes, Spellbreaker will no longer work on Lady Geist's Soul Exchange. And by the way, this, I believe, is referring to the 75% spirit damage reduction, and not the inherent 25% spirit resist that it gives you. That 25% should work against Lady Geist's ult. I see no reason why it wouldn't, but the actual sort of active component of Spellbreaker, that's what they're referring to here. Siphon Bullets got nerfed, to no one's surprise. Oh my gosh. Yeah, they increased the cooldown back to 0.8 seconds. That was just, I seriously don't get why they buffed this item so hard. And now it's being nerfed. And they also fixed various bugs with stat stealing and capacitor/debuff remover. So they made the item a little bit more consistent in terms of buggy interactions. And yeah, now, honestly, it's just in a worse position than it was before. Because if you remember, in a previous update, they reduced the max HP steal per bullet from 65 down to 55. And that was to compensate for the 0.7 second cooldown. But now the cooldown's back up to 0.8 seconds, and the max HP steal is lower. So we've gone right back around and made Siphon Bullets a little bit worse, I guess. Although the Spirit Resist instead of Bullet Resist is still a pretty nice thing, and I'm sure this item will still be fantastic on a lot of characters. Superior Cooldown got nerfed again. Whoa, from 26% down to 25%. This means it provides just 3% more cooldown reduction than compressed cooldown now, which is a little interesting. If you're focusing on one ability in particular, and you don't care as much about the rest of your abilities, honestly, there's not much of a reason to upgrade to this item, which is kind of a funny interaction. But also, yeah, it is still going to be really good. 25% cooldown reduction on all your abilities. I still definitely want that. Definitely a smaller nerf here. Tank Buster had various bugs when multiple abilities would hit on the same frame, and so they've just fixed that. Decay's damage will no longer proc item effects, and they say like Affliction in parentheses, which when I read that the first time I was like, wait a second, Affliction's not an item? What are we talking about here, Valve? No, I believe they were comparing it to Affliction, which is allowed to proc items. So now with Decay, you can no longer theoretically proc, let's say, Spirit Burn, for example. So just definitely a nerf there, although Decay kind of gets off easy this patch compared to a lot of the other previous balance patches that we've had over the last couple weeks. Lightning Scroll had a few bugs when used with Refresher, that's been fixed. Boundless Spirit just got a buff. The Spirit Power percentage went from 10% up to 13%. This item's even better now. Woo, a lot of Spirit Power from this. Vortex Web, they adjusted the casting arc to be more similar to other grenades, so it should feel a little bit better. Let me just go at a distance and see how this feels. Throw that out. I just nailed that guy. First try. Oh my goodness. You can't make this up. Yeah, alright. Cool. It's a grenade. And Mercurial Magnum fixed an interaction bug with Split Shot. I'll be real here, I have no idea what bug they're talking about, but thanks, Valve. A lot of bug fixes and a lot of balance changes, and this new per boon scaling really is interesting. I'm very curious to see how this will affect the meta, and if it's an idea that they're going to expand to even more items. Now let's talk about hero changes. Up first we have Abrams, and his health growth per boon has been nerfed from 81 down to 78. This is the amount of health, obviously, that you get from leveling up. They've also changed Infernal Resilience a little bit, so the damage regenerated has increased from 10% to 12%, and the tier 3 has been buffed from 5% to 6%, so just a nice buff to his overall healing here. And they have also fixed various network-related issues with the shoulder charge, so this should be a lot more consistent now. Oh, I just barely didn't have enough distance there. Shoulder charge's wall stun has been nerfed, however, from 0.85 seconds to 0.6 seconds. That's actually a really big deal. Am I even going to be able to hit a heavy melee on this guy before the stun is over? That looks really tight. I think if you're super duper fast, you might be able to get a parry off, and especially with debuff reducer. Oh yeah, you're going to be able to parry out of that. Oh, that's a big deal. Shoulder Charge's Tier 2 has been changed from minus 12 seconds of cooldown to plus 0.45 seconds of wall stun. So once you upgrade this, you actually get more wall stun than the previous 0.85 seconds. Now, slam him! Yeah, that's a much chunkier stun. And then the tier 3 has just been changed to give you minus 18 seconds of cooldown. So yeah, we're looking at around a 19 second cooldown when you have that tier 3 upgraded. Very interesting. A lot of changes here for Abrams, and hopefully, honestly, the change I'm kind of most excited for is the network-related fixes for Shoulder Charge. I just like things being more consistent. There's a lot of things that are bugging this game. Abrams Shoulder Charge is definitely one of them, but also things like Lash Ult and stuff like that. I really hope they continue fixing those over time. Bebop got one buff. Uh-oh. Wait, no, don't worry. It's just to his ultimate. This is fine. Don't worry about it. The ultimate now has 20 seconds less cooldown, from 130 down to 110. And they also fixed some issues with lag compensation and the hook. Hopefully this means, again, that the hook will just be more consistent and feel more fair when you actually get pulled. Feels like he actually hit the shot on you. Calico's getting some changes, the first of which is that she has 1 extra ammo from 9 to 10. Huzzah! Ava's self-slow on damage duration increased from 1.5 to 2 seconds, and the self-slow on damage has been increased from 50% up to 65% slow. So if you get hit as Ava, you're going to be much slower, and you're going to be slower for longer. So yeah, this guy hits me, and now look at how much slower I'm moving. So if you're actually able to hit this tiny little cat while she's running around, you will be rewarded with an easier time catching the cat. Ava's duration has also been reduced from 15 seconds down to 14 seconds, and the tier 1 duration increase has been reduced from 20 seconds down to 14 seconds. That's actually a really big deal. So it's going to take a lot more effort to get 100% uptime on Ava now. Ava's recent damage window has also been increased from 5 seconds to 6 seconds, and they fixed Curse and Stuns not interrupting Ava, similar to Ice Path and Flame Dash. So you can now also Curse or Stun Calico out of Ava form. Really just a bunch of nerfs here to Ava, the slippery little cat that's really hard to catch and is really good at maneuvering around the map. Honestly, fair enough. Ava is a super cheeky ability to use, and she's really good at running up on people or running away from people, so yeah, fair enough. Great Talon is getting some changes here. The first is that the Spirit Snare has a bigger radius, from 6.2 up to 6.5 meters. And obviously, if you scale that with range, if you're a freak who buys range on Talon, then, yeah, that'll be even bigger. They've also made it so the Guided Owl has a few quality of life changes. The duration has been increased from 14 to 16 seconds. You have more time to find your prey. The cooldown has been decreased from 127 down to 125 seconds. 2-second change, but hey, it helps. And the Tier 2 cooldown has been improved from minus 47 seconds down to minus 50 seconds. So let me just grab this, turn off no cooldown, and yeah, we can fly around, blow up the owl, and we have a 74-second cooldown on that now. Ooh, we can get superior cooldown on that, and yeah, we're chilling. We can get, like, 1 bird a minute with this. That's awesome. Similar to Bebop, Holiday also got some issues with lag compensation fixed when it comes to her Spirit Lasso, so again, hopefully should just feel a little bit more fair for everyone involved when it actually gets hit. They have also nerfed the cooldown, so it is now a 105-second cooldown instead of a 100-second cooldown, but when you get the Tier 3, you get that 5 seconds back, because the cooldown has been improved here from 30 seconds down to 35 seconds of cooldown reduction. Infernus is getting just 1 change, but it is actually a pretty big change. If you hit heads, if you're accurate, you get rewarded with 10% improved build-up rate. So yeah, you get that afterburn online even quicker with those headshots. Look at that. So yeah, pretty nice. McGinnis had a very silly bug. I wish I had a clip of it, but sadly I don't. But McGinnis was able to basically stockpile 1,000,000 turrets here on the throne area, and when the throne would eventually descend, all the turrets would activate, and you'd basically have like a giant army of robots in the center pit fight here. Utterly hilarious, and honestly it wasn't that much of an issue, because if you had AoE spam, you could just dumpster all the turrets in a matter of seconds. But yeah, this bug has been fixed, so no more turret jank alongside the throne here. You can see that they're all just sitting here properly. If I summon Infernus as an enemy, I'm sorry, Infernus. Wow, if you have no upgrades, the turrets just don't do damage. Oh, thank you, patron. Mo and Krill is getting a couple of changes that I think are very eminently reasonable. So, first of all, they buffed the base gun damage from 2.6 to 2.7. Considering his gun wasn't all that great, I think this is alright. And they also buffed the spirit scaling of Scorn from 0.39 up to 0.42. So, should be able to get a little bit more healing and damage on that. And considering all the spirit scaling nerfs they've done recently and all the spirit damage reduction that there is now, fair enough. Also, they nerfed the ultimate. They increased the cooldown from 75 seconds up to 80 seconds. Again, totally reasonable. Mo and Krill ult is one of the strongest pick ults in the entire game. You just slap somebody down here, you lock them down for multiple seconds, and your team can just do the rest. It's very powerful, and so, yeah, a little bit of a cooldown increase goes a long way. Pocket got one very big spirit scaling buff here to Flying Cloak. The spirit damage scaling has gone from 1.04 up to 1.3. That's actually kind of a big deal. That's a lot of spirit scaling, and if we just buy, like, Boundless Spirit, for example, just level 0 Flying Cloak here, we go up to 171 damage. We're getting 81 extra damage from that spirit, so that's a really nice buff. Ooh, we got some 7 changes here. So, a couple of months ago, actually now I think at this point, they nerfed his health regen to be 1.5, and it wasn't actually working. He still actually had 3 health regen, so they fixed it. It is now properly 1.5. Ooh, oopsies, Valve. They also changed a couple of his other abilities. First of all, they buffed the damage scaling of Power Surge, specifically that, not the duration scaling, from 0.148 to 0.16. That's pretty cool. And they also changed the Storm Cloud quite a bunch. So the DPS has been reduced from 120 down to 115, and the Tier 3 DPS increase has been reduced from 75 down to 70, so just less damage overall. However, they did increase the spirit scaling from 0.65 to 0.7, so again, you want spirit scaling on 7. And they also nerfed the cooldown, absolutely reasonable, from 148 seconds to 155 seconds. Very powerful ultimate, so yeah, nerf the uptime, absolutely reasonable. Shiv is getting even more nerfs. This guy has just been nerfed like, what, 4 patches in a row now or something? This item store has been so good to him, hasn't it? But yeah, they have nerfed his alt-fire base damage by 15%. Wow, that's actually kind of a big deal. And they have also nerfed the rage that he gets per weapon shot by 10%. So, gonna take even longer to fill up this bar if you're just hitting people with the gun. You gotta interweave some daggers and get damage from other sources, and that'll build it up at the same rate. Oh god, they buffed Sinclair. Okay, so they buffed the Vexing Bolt. That's fair and balanced, actually. They increased the radius from 3 meters to 3.5 meters, and fixed the radius to actually properly scale with range increases. Now, previously, it was not. So, happy to see a bug fix, and you know what? I feel like the Bolt has been a little underwhelming for a long time now, so yeah, that's absolutely fine. However, they buffed the Tier 2 duration of the Spectral Assistant from 5 seconds up to 7 seconds, even more uptime on this now, and this is where it gets ludicrous. They reduced the cooldown of the Rabbit Hex from 35 seconds to 30 seconds. They do realize the meta for Sinclair now, right? Where you Rabbit Hex people and then you punch them? Why are we buffing the rabbit? Oh god. I have no words for this. They nerfed my Viscous again. Why? They nerfed the goo ball duration from 10 seconds to 9 seconds. 1 second off of this thing. And that's gonna hurt, definitely, a lot, especially in the early game here. If you don't get an upgrade on the goo ball, you have even less time to use it now. You can still get that plus 5 seconds of duration from the tier 1, and you can still scale it with duration increases, but all of that's just gonna be a little bit worse now. Man, why? Warden is getting a pretty big weapon damage nerf here. The damage that he gets per boon has been reduced from 0.74 to 0.6. That's actually a really big percentage decrease right there. And they also nerfed the last stand, specifically when it gets interrupted in this channeling phase by some kind of stun. The cooldown will be increased from 20 seconds to 30 seconds. So yeah, if you didn't know, Last Stand does have 2 cooldowns. The main one that you see, the 140 seconds, that's if you use the ult successfully. But if you get interrupted during the channeling phase, it goes on cooldown, and that specifically is what has been increased here. And to top it all off, probably the most reasonable balance change of them all, telekinesis. The duration has been nerfed from 3 seconds to 2.75 seconds. Thanks, Valve. I hate this ultimate so much. Thank you for nerfing it. So yeah, that's gonna do it for today's video and all of these wonderful balance changes. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. Personally, I think a lot of it is very reasonable and very interesting as well, like with the boon scaling on items. Now, a couple of the changes I disagree with, like this one right here, the cooldown decrease for Sinclair's Hex. I don't like the Viscous nerf, personally. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with this patch. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section down below. And also, again, if you guys have been enjoying my coverage of the updates here, as well as all of the very silly builds that I've been making on the channel here, then why not consider subscribing? Really helps out a ton. So with all that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all next time. Peace out.